Okay, hi everyone. If you can hear me, welcome to another edition of Selling October. I'd like to know that you can hear me. If you can hear me, just say hello on the chat, on the comments, and then just say hello on the comments, and let us know where you're joining from. Let us know what you do and what your name.
I can hear you.
Your name, what you do. Thanks, Charles. I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Fantastic.
Welcome. I was just trying to do the welcoming and introductions before you joined.
Okay.
So hi everyone. Thanks. So I like to see the comments. I like to know that you're there. And just one more thing, do me the favor of sharing the link. Just copy the link and share to the community and to the groups so that we can have more people join. Please let me know in the comments. I like to know your name. I like to know what you do, and I like to know where you're joining from. Please, let's just do that. Before I introduce Charles. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Uche Aniche, and I'm the convener for StartupSouth. You already know that, and you already know me. Today is not for my introduction. Today, I have a fantastic, um, dude in the house. Charles is, I mean, just recently, all of the African tech ecosystem lit up literally on the news of on the news of the exit of Paystack, to to Stripe, and everybody was, I mean, a lot of people were very excited and happy, and then it was an inspiring moment for a lot of people, But today on Selling October, we have someone who is an integral part of that team, who I dare say is one of the strong, one of the senior people making that team very strong. So whatever you've heard, um, the, our guest today is an integral part of that result, of that result. And the things he's going to share with us today are some of, I believe are some of the things that make that type of result possible. Charles is an accomplished sales professional, has had he has experience across different types of startups, different types of organizations, from from working for multinationals to working for what I would like to call grow ups, and then work for startups. I mean, and everything in between. Charles has that experience, and Charles, Charles, when we talk like this about your experience, it looks like I'm talking to a very old man. Is that the case? Because
Very far from it.
so how are you able to do all of this? I mean, you want to give us a bit of your background in sales.
Sure, sure.
I mean,
I can do that.
how were you able to accumulate all of that?
Okay, well, before I answer that, thank you first, Uche, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, to be able to speak to the community at Startup South. And I just say, like, I'm happy to just discuss. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just saying
Yes,
that
we can.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to share a bit about my experience, and also to hear from you guys and learn from the community about the kinds of things folks that are on this session are doing. So thank you again. And then in terms of my background, so I've been in industry for, I think, 12 to 14 years now. I'm not too old to be sure. I'm in the 30s, so I think it's my generation that was also part of the protests that recently happened. I want to believe I'm still part of that generation. But yeah, I graduated from university in 2007. It's a bit of a long time ago now, but not too long. And then I went into management consulting right after. So for about 3 years, I was with a startup management consulting firm. And then I left that and co-founded one myself with a friend, before deciding that sales was sort of where I felt I could or I had the most interest in, and I wanted to develop competence in. So I then transitioned into sales, and I joined. Well, before that, I went to do a master's at University College UCL in London, and then from UCL, I joined a company called BMC Software, which is one of the legacy enterprise software companies that you may not have heard about, but works quite broadly with a lot of global powerhouses or the big companies that you all hear about. So I was with BMC for just about 2 years in multiple locations between the UK, South Africa, and covering West Africa as well. And then I left BMC and I joined Intuity, another enterprise software company. But I had a brief stint there because my interest in startups was sort of simmering, and I wanted to do more of the startup work. And I joined a team trying to do something in the media content space. That didn't go too well, So there's stories of failures as well, if you may call it that. And then Paystack, the opportunity to join Paystack came, and I took that opportunity. So, and I think that was about 2+ years ago now. So I've been at Paystack for the last 2 years, and leading the sales team, leading the efforts to expand that team and also acquire the merchants that we hope will help us grow over the next few years. So yeah, that's the journey in a nutshell. Yeah.
That's such an interesting journey, right?
Yeah.
Before I believe you have some slides you want to share.
Yeah.
But before I turn over and let you share the slides and hand over the platform to you, there is this question that I've told Shola that I'm going to ask him this question.
Okay.
But as a salesperson, I think I'm going to ask you the question before.
Okay.
I like to know um, how did Shola, what exactly did Shola tell you that made you believe in the Paystack dream to join Paystack? I mean, you could have said no. So
Mhm.
what exactly did you do? Because one thing that I've I've been monitoring and watching Shola from, I've followed Shola for a while, and one of the things I've realized is that, and Shola has this ability, to um, recruit an A list team. I don't know if it has to do with the money. Is it about the money, or what exactly makes it interesting and make this type of people, because like I mean, Bankole, for instance, works with Paystack right now, and I can give a whole list of ecosystem heavyweights that have gone to Paystack, and I'm wondering what what does Shola tell of you?
I think that's a very good question. I can only speak for myself. I'm sure the others will have their perspectives, but there may be some common things. First of all, Shola is an individual of impeccable character, and you know, anytime you speak with him, you feel his honesty and the sincerity of his purpose as it relates to the vision for payments on the continent. So I think for me that was what did it. I had a chat with him, and he's quite relentless, to say the least. I had a chat with him, and I think what he was able to articulate the vision of Paystack to me, and there was I think at that time Paystack was just about concluding its Series A round. And if I remember correctly, I asked him a question about, where he saw the company going. And I think his response was, look, um, we have all the ingredients here to build something beyond what any of us here can really imagine. And it's in our hands, really, to determine the cost of this thing. And if you join this team, you'll be like the responsibility will be in your hands as well to really because collectively as a team, we get to determine where this goes, and it could be anything. So his pitch to me was, look, you know, come on board. We have this canvas here. Let's paint the picture, whatever picture we want, right? Let's make this thing work. And for me, I remembered. I know you probably are familiar with the Steve Jobs story when he was hiring. I forget the guy's name now. The guy who was the Pepsi CEO who eventually pushed him out. And then he said to the guy, "Look, do you want to spend your life selling colored water, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" And so for me, I sort of that just flashed through my mind, and I was like, okay, maybe this could be a Steve Jobs moment, for me. So why not take that? So yeah, that was kind of it for me.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for that. A lot of founders, um, find themselves and at this point where they have to convince people to join their team. And that's part of why I asked that question, because I'm still looking forward to when I can have a session with Shola, because I like to ask him that question directly and hear from him, directly what his playbook is in terms of recruiting people. Just one last thing. I promise, this is
Sure.
the
No,
last one
please
before you
go
go.
ahead.
So just what does your typical role, in Paystack as a sales lead look like?
Okay. So as head of sales at Paystack, I'm responsible for pretty much building the sales organization. And so I was pretty much technically the second sales hire at Paystack. I mean, we laugh in the company that Shola is a half salesman, because obviously he does everything or he does multiple things as CEO. So my role entails everything from structuring, hiring, executing, and measuring the performance of the sales team. And for an organization of our size and in the stage of our growth that we are, that is quite amorphous in a way, because like we're constantly evolving, we're constantly trying to structure and like build and then maybe not tear down but sort of evolve so that we can have the right capacity and capability to do what we need to do. So yeah, it cuts across those things in terms of my role. So from a strategic standpoint, a lot of strategic design and thinking, how should the team look? What roles should we have? How should what should the different members of the team focus on? And then, there's the execution part where I'm actively involved in selling, going to meetings, speaking with potential clients, closing deals. And then there's the monitoring and measurement side of things. Okay, so looking at the whole business, looking at pipeline, where are we, what are we doing? Are we working towards our targets and all of that? And then measuring all that and setting goals for on both an annual basis, quarterly and monthly.
Awesome. All right. The floor is open to you. You can actually share your screen or share your
Okay.
slides. Uh,
Okay.
so, guys, um, please, if you're there, just introduce yourself and also share the link so that others can join. Please introduce yourself and say what your name is, what you do, and where you are joining from. It's important. It's important to us. And then this is the last session for selling October. Just before you know, oh, the screen is the slides are on. So over to you. I'll do the remaining talk afterwards.
All right, thanks. But before I start, can I just ask? I want to get a sense of the people on the call. So the participants. Can anybody? And I don't know if I can hear you all, but I'm out of curiosity. I want to know, just the kind of profile of people who are here and what you expect to get from this session. I know we put out a small blog, but it would be useful to just get a sense of what people are expecting to get so that I can see if I can match that.
Okay. Hopefully they can type in. I've been asking
Okay, to type in. Okay.
the people on the call today. Usually the call is 4:30.
Right.
I had to move it to 5:15.
5 years. Yes.
want to assume it affected a few people.
Okay, sure.
The people on call today looks like they are shy, um, or they're type shy. I'm not sure how
Okay,
to say
fair
that.
enough. Fair
You know,
enough.
so
Yeah.
I hope they type.
Okay,
But
not
guys,
a problem.
he wants to be
Yeah.
able to have a gauge of who is on the call and what you're expecting from the call. Please do us a favor and let us know what you think you want to hear from him on the call today.
Uche, if you can just help me keep an eye on that. At some point, maybe when I pause, if there's anything interesting you see that you want to share, just let me know, and we can speak to that. Okay. All right. So let's jump into this. Thanks again, Uche, and thanks everyone for making the time to be here. We decided to theme this session "Lessons from a Career in Sales," and it's because I run away from presenting myself or pitching myself as an expert. I don't I I'm very wary of people who say they're experts in anything, because I feel like life is is an endless learning process. I do admit or concede that there are people who are experts in some fields, but I don't think I'm an expert anyway. So I'm still on the journey, and I feel like I've learned a few lessons in my own journey, and that's what I wanted to I wanted to share today, and I'm hoping that you guys can pick up a few things from the lessons that I think I've learned. So in starting out, this session, is called selling, or this period for Startup South. I think this is a selling themed session, right, or period. So I said, to start with, let's consider this question: Is selling worth the trouble, right? And a lot of people, I mean, in more advanced economies, so in the US, in Europe, particularly in the US, salespeople don't have a good reputation. People feel like they're this aggressive, people they're aggressive people who really just look out for their own interests and don't care about the interests of anyone else, and they just want their paycheck. They just want to push the product down, whoever is buying it, and move on. So there's a perception about salespeople out there, but and so that perception has filtered through, I guess, the business community in some ways. Maybe not so much in Africa, but I think I won't be surprised if that thing exists as well in Africa. So um, I found, I was listening to an interview that Jordan Peterson gave some months ago, and he was talking about the entrepreneurial type people, the creative people who are the visionaries and the designers. And he said, that he noticed that there was some contempt that these people held, or these people, these entrepreneurs and creatives held certain functions like sales and marketing in some contempt. They felt like those were things they didn't like, they didn't want to get involved in. And he argued that that's like that was a wrong way to look at it. And he said, this statement that he made, it's in the interview. He said it's virtually impossible for you to monetize your product. Sorry, just one second. Yeah, maybe you get lucky and figure out a strategy, but if you add contempt for the sales and marketing process to that impossibility, you can be bloody well sure that all you're going to do is starve. And the reality is, if a founder, or some artist, or whoever, some creative genius who thinks of an idea or a product and conceives this thing, builds it brilliantly, if they're lucky, they might build that product, or they might establish that idea without and not have to sell it, because maybe it's so groundbreaking that by putting it out there, they're lucky, and word of mouth or whatever just helps them sell that, and commercially they become successful. But the reality is that doesn't happen all the time. So for most artists, creatives, entrepreneurs, or visionaries who build products to meet a need or to solve a problem, there is the intrinsic need to put in the right systems to get that product out into the market, to meet the needs of the people who have the problem that product was designed to solve. And there's a whole structure behind that needs to be put in place, and that needs to be put in place deliberately. So that is a justification for selling. And to the extent that the individual who is behind this endeavor wants to optimize what they've done, they need to take the right steps to put that structure in place, and that involves more often than not selling the product or service that they've built. So that's a very fundamental point I wanted to highlight. In terms of my career, I spoke about it earlier. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I guess broadly, you can summarize it, in these three acts. I worked as a consultant, and then I worked in sales in the enterprise software space, and I've worked in sales for startups of different sizes. But fundamentally, what I found when thinking back, thinking back through my career, is that the one thing that the common thread that has been prominent in all that I've done is solving problems. Whether it was in consulting, whether I was in selling software, or whether it's in selling Paystack now as it is, it's solving problems for people. And so fundamentally, problem solving is something that is I think very, very essential to work. And in terms of the lessons that I've learned in my career, I think that is the first fundamental lesson that I would say I take away from my sales career, and that is that selling is also part of problem solving. And if you are familiar with some of the sales methodologies out there, or sales processes, or depending on how they're referred to, you will see that there's one of the steps that is prominent or that features in most of the selling methodologies is discovery. And discovery is the process of uncovering needs or uncovering pains that potential prospects have, and doing discovery in selling or in sales is a very, very fundamental activity or fundamental task in any sales process. And if you think also about the lean methods, or Eric Ries's lean startup principles, the whole concept of build, measure, learn, measuring and learning are sort of that process, that scientific process of, even building, because you build experiments. A part of that scientific process of problem solving, you're measuring to see that what you built has, some utility, and then, you're documenting your learning so that you can iterate and improve on what you've built if it doesn't really address what you built the way you wanted it to, or the way you thought it would. And so discovery as a step in a sales process is part of that scientific approach or method of testing, right? Questioning to understand better what the context of the situation is. So I wrote this thing down here. It was just a thought that came to my head. Paracetamol for a headache, right? When you have a headache, or in most cases, when one has a headache, they take an aspirin. They call it aspirin, but paracetamol is the brand that, or I don't know the chemical, the drug that we refer to painkillers as. So problem solving is the thing, and selling is part of problem solving. So like I said, in any sales process or sales methodology, you would find discovery as part of that process, and that relates to, or that's a key part of the whole selling process. The second lesson that I think is worth noting is that selling and business development, because you have people use these words interchangeably, business development and selling. While they are related, they're not actually the same thing, right? So selling delivers a tangible outcome, and that's revenue or money in the bank, right, for a business. And I'm going to say it's a consequence of business development, because depending on what definition of business development you see, you'll realize that it's a process that precedes the actual engagement, of customers on, or engagement with customers on a certain transaction, so specific to solving a certain problem. So business development helps create a pipeline, which means it precedes sales or selling, and leads to sales in future. And then the things like product dev, design, customer discovery, product profiling and persona building, all those are business development activities. But the selling activities are different. They start from the generation of pipeline, and they end with either closing the sale or value delivery, depending on how one wants to measure it. And then a third lesson, which I think is very, very key, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this before, is that selling is both an art and a science. As a science, it needs to be process driven to be effective. And that's why you have diverse methodologies. There are a ton of them out there. I think that's, some resource I saw about 9 different methodologies that are regarded as mainstream selling methodologies. So you have things like spin selling, you have challenger sales, you have solution selling, and the likes. So those speak to the fact that selling, selling is a science, and it can actually be, it can be treated as such. It's something that can be repeated, it can be proven, and the results can be seen and they can be measured. But it's also an art, and that's where the talent or creativity or the unique abilities of human beings come in. Different people approach selling differently because of their unique personalities, but ultimately, because selling is a human engagement, is a form of human engagement. You interact with people, you're selling to people. The unique qualities of the individual come to the fore or are brought to bear in that process. And so in that sense, it's an art form where person A can do it differently to the way I would do it, or to the way anyone else would do it. So that's something that is very fundamental to keep in mind, and to note that this is something that is unique in that it sits on both sides, being an art and being a science. So those are the 3 key lessons that I wanted to draw out, from my career, just reflecting. I think these are the 3 most important things to note, and this can give you or anyone a foundation to build on in terms of just conceptualizing selling and trying to make sense of how to approach it. So moving on from this, how then should sales be structured at various stages of the life of a business? Now, what we have here is a framework that I saw from someone I follow, a guy called Mark Roberge. He's a sales leader who's worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. And you can check him out later on. But I think this framework properly captured the way to structure sales at different stages. I think broadly 3 stages of the life cycle of a business. And so the first stage is the product market fit stage. The second stage is the acceleration stage, or what he's referring to here as the go-to-market fit. And then the third stage is the high growth, or the growth and mode stage, as he refers to it here. So you can see that I've highlighted the sales hire parts, right, across the vertical axis. The different elements that he's included there include sales hire, and he said that at the product market fit stage, you need a different type of sales hire, someone with a different profile. At the process builder, at the go-to-market fit stage, you need someone who's a process builder, and then at the growth stage, you need someone who's a process executor. So thinking back through my career, this properly captured, the different profile, like personality profiles or higher profiles that was needed at different times. So if I think back to when I was selling, or when I was working as a consultant, as a co-founder of a consulting firm, we're experimenting with a professional services firm to serve medium-sized companies. So there were the likes of KPMGs, Accentures. We couldn't compete with those guys. So we felt, okay, there's a different segment of the market that also needs professional services, but that can't go to KPMG and Accenture to go and ask them to consult for them. So we decided to build a company to serve that segment. And so I, as one of the co-founders, was responsible for selling, and I had to wear multiple hats. So while I had to sell, I also had to ideate and do the whole process of strategizing with my co-founder, and so thinking about it, my role was some sort of involved some sort of product management, or product development, but also selling, and so just moving on to the next slide. For businesses at the product market fit stage, where a business has been able to build a product and get that product in front of customers, and then there's been a response from the market, right? So multiple customers have responded and are saying, okay, yes, this actually meets my need in some way, and they're willing to pay for it. They're actually buying the product, to the degree where it's not just family and friends anymore, but it's gone beyond family and friends now, and there's this it's substantial customer base. At that level, the kind of sales hire that is needed is someone that has the ability to channel feedback from the market to the development team, and to share that feedback in a way that helps the process of refining the product that has been built. So at this product market fit stage, focus is as much on selling as on delivering feedback from customers. So the ideal hire would be someone who potentially has worked as an account executive in a different function, and an account, these are just terminologies, but essentially an account executive from a sales standpoint is someone who has responsibility for managing different accounts, as we call it in selling and sales. People who have sold to accounts, who have engaged with different stakeholders in accounts and understand how to lead stakeholder-based engagements to close a deal, but also not people who are just fully like full-bred or thoroughbred salespeople, but people who are still moldable, people who are still open to innovation and open to doing things in different ways. It's people with that type of profile that will be ideal at the product market fit stage. And at this stage, for an organization, the structure should be very simple, because as you all know, any startup that is in the product market fit stage is also still figuring out its org structure. The co-founders or the founders are all doing multiple things, they are receptionists, secretary, delivery people and all of that. So that's the type of structure that you have. And from a sales standpoint, the structure also has to be simple, where whoever is hired for sales, or if it's one or multiple people, they have to understand that they will wear multiple hats and do different things. And they need to be good at things like, discovering needs. So remember, I talked about discovery earlier, identifying patterns. So because ultimately you're matching problems to solutions, and then communicating and collaborating very effectively. So those are some of the key things to note. I'm Uche, should I go ahead? Is there any questions at this point from anyone, or because I'm about to go to the next two slides, which will probably conclude, and then we can open the conversation up if there's any questions. But are there any questions at this point?
No, none yet. Please,
Okay.
everyone, if you have questions, please drop it in the just drop the questions in the comments. Go ahead,
Okay.
Charles.
Okay. So stage two, we're talking about acceleration here and go-to-market fit. So the goal for this phase, right? Moving on from the product market fit phase, the company at this point is now a bit more established, right? Has been able to probably scale beyond, its first set of customers, and maybe from a geographic perspective has been able to, I mean, if we're thinking Nigeria now, has been able to expand beyond Lagos and Abuja and is now getting customers broadly, Ibadan and all the other states or whatever. Or if you're thinking about it globally, beyond the immediate country where the company was founded. So at this stage, the sales hire now needs to be a process builder. So someone who has the ability to now start to put in the right structure and to support the growth that the company is now experiencing, right? And our focus is on designing and documenting the functioning processes for the task to be repeated. Remember, I talked earlier about the fact that this is a science as well, and so the methodologies have to be scientific, and in that sense you have to be able to repeat them, and they have to deliver results. So for companies that are in this stage, the profile of the sales hire has to evolve from just someone who's very flexible, who is maybe not an all-rounder, but like that dynamic person who could be a product manager and an account executive at the same time, to someone who's now a bit more focused on just process building, process design, right? But ultimately, the other profile still is required because the company is still engaging, still still getting feedback from the market and channeling that feedback back to the product design people, and then influencing the development of the product. But ultimately, this is where the processes have to now be put in place. This is where the processes have to come in, and the sales hire here has to embody those attributes of being a process builder. And so at this stage, in terms of the structure still is relatively simple. In most cases, you would have, this is where the team starts to be formed. You have the makings of a team at this stage. So there's an org chart that can now be designed for the sales unit or the sales department, and that org chart can have different roles. Maybe a sales lead or a head of sales, whatever title wants to be given, and then there can be sales representatives or account managers reporting to that lead. And then, if the company is going to have an inbound sales team or an inside sales team, then there can also be someone who's responsible for inside sales and is receiving phone calls or requests that are coming organically from the website. So still a relatively simple structure that just is designed taking into consideration the unique nature of the company, and how that company sells or interacts with its customers or customers in the market. So the focus remains on building out the function, testing and iterating, and while maintaining that feedback loop from the market. And then the third stage, which is the high growth or scaling stage. Now at this stage, the company has, proven that there's, it's a viable organization. There's a clear alignment between the product or service that it delivers to the market, and there's value that the market gets from buying or its product or consuming its products or services. Now at this stage, the organization is pretty much taking off. This is where the rocket ship starts going into orbit. And so at this point, the profile, the ideal sales hire would be, or sales hires would be process executors, right? So having designed the processes in the previous phase of the company's evolution. The folks who now need to come in are people who can now execute within that framework that has been built. So the focus now is on long-term execution and just capturing value from the market and management of that process. So tracking, key performance indicators, optimizing the performance of the team, and ensuring that everyone is moving in the right direction and delivering against the objectives that have been set. And then the structure now becomes a bit more complex, because this is where things like complex compensation plans now have to be designed. This is where things like territory or alignment, territory planning and alignment now come in. So how are the sales reps going to be aligned? Will there be geographic alignments? Will it just be territories, or will it be verticals? Will there be industries that some salespeople will be hired to just focus on a specific industry versus focusing on a geography broadly? And then it's also at this point that you now need an operation to support the sales team and the efforts of the salespeople. So that's where a sales operations unit now becomes required, an essential function that is required to support the sales team and the sales organization. And that sales operation unit now handles things like the compensation design, the performance management, and all the other things that are required to keep the front office salespeople focused on executing their sales. So that's it broadly from the third perspective. So just in summary, and I think that's the end of my slides. Going back to this structure, I think it's what I think you should take away from this is that at any given point in the life of a business, it's incumbent on the founders to understand where they are, understand what the goals of what their goals are at that stage. Obviously revenue, is a goal for any company, right? And it's essential for survival. But what is clear is that the process of building a startup is, the process of finding a business model that works. So at certain stages, at the early stages of a startup's existence, revenue is not necessarily the key objective. You want to find, that you're able to build a product or service that meets the unique needs or the needs of customers, the perceived needs of customers, that was envisioned. And, at that point, at the early stages, the organization needs to have the right resource set up, and especially as it relates to sales. And as a salesperson, I'm honest to know that at the stage of product market fit, you don't need a thoroughbred salesperson, right? You need someone who is more dynamic than a professional salesman for early stage companies. Professional salespeople come in later in the life of a business, and you have to be certain that you have the right incentives in place, or you have the right objectives. The objectives for the company have been properly defined so that when they come in, they can fit in and help drive the achievement of those objectives. So I will pause here now, and that is essentially the end of my small presentation, and I'm happy to discuss this and take any questions.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Charles. Apparently, I need to apologize to, the participants. Apparently there's a mix-up in maybe there's a technical on on YouTube. So I wasn't seeing the comment from. I wasn't seeing the comments from the screen that I was looking at the time.
Right.
There had several responses to, the questions that you asked. For the screen I have here isn't showing me that.
Right.
But I can see that like when you ask the question, what the expectation And like somebody says, we'd love to hear more of the Paystack story and what type of strategies we can adopt to deliver impressive returns. So that's like an expectation. So I don't think what you is far from this actually. It's not at all. I think it fits into what this guy wanted.
Mm,
Um, so I have a question in line with the Paystack
sure,
story. I have a question of mine that I'm going
sure,
to ask you.
sure.
But let me just answer Olu's question. Olu says, "Would we have this slide?" Um, I want to believe you'll be able to
Yeah,
make the
I can
slide
make that
available
available.
to us.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
We can host this slide on. We can host this on our website, and you can go download it
Okay.
afterwards. Yes,
Okay.
and last week's own from Taiwo also. Taiwo has sent in the slide as well. We'll be hosting it on the site shortly, and you can go download it as well. So to my question, Charles, you know, right now, like you already know, Paystack is the you know the it's not the kid on the block. Is the wave of the moment. Stemming from that news,
Yeah.
and so it's a lot of people will want to learn as much as they can learn from insiders. Within Paystack and understand, especially how they can replicate that sort of result, and you can already see that that's part of what people were expecting. So I'm from since this is talking about sales. At some point in Paystack Live, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they were you guys were already. I don't know if you've joined at that time, but you guys were already over 2 years old and were already doing good, but to you decided to put up a billboard. I don't know if you had joined at that time.
Oh, yes, I was there.
Um, oh, great. So they decided to put up a billboard and wrote a blog post about it. Talked about the decisions and all of that stuff. I don't know how many people read that blog, but I want to ask you directly, as someone who was part of the team and an insider then, what are some of the inner conversations that led to that? Because especially when you consider that the messaging was somewhat unique, it wasn't necessarily about selling, as it were. Um, the messaging on the billboard wasn't necessarily about selling at the point. Um, I sort of have a bit of understanding of what transpired, but I'd like to hear from you as an insider. What were the actual undercurrents that led to putting up that billboard? Because apparently, Paystack didn't need the billboard to sell at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So before I answer this question, let me just put a disclaimer that there's a limit to what I can say about Paystack, because this was more focused on selling than about Paystack.
Yes.
So I'm not necessarily here to speak for the company, right? But I can respond to this because I mean something that we like you said, we put a blog post, we wrote a we published a blog post on that whole process of finding the billboards, or sort of searching for how to launch billboards. I think for us, really, um, at Paystack, our job is really to help. Our mission really is to accelerate digital payments on the continent, right? And as part of that process, we are educating, and you probably see, I think our head of growth, Emmanuel, spoke was on a podcast recently. So for those of you who are interested, you can look for that podcast. I think it was with Flip Africa or something. And he spoke a lot about what we do from a marketing standpoint, because that's his remit, and I think that's what he was speaking to on that show. So for us, in working towards achieving our mission, right, we know that there's a lot of education that needs to happen. That we need to educate the public, we need to educate our users. Our users are drawn from broad segment of the population, right? There are people who obviously are tech savvy, who use Paystack, who understand, you know, what a payment gateway is, fintech company is, and what we're doing. But there are also people who use Paystack who are not necessarily tech savvy, right? So for us, it's all part of the process of educating, the broad population about online payments and digital technology. And as you all know, there are still issues of trust. There are still issues of mistrust, I should say, um, uh, as it relates to technology. And so we don't take anything for granted. So we try to keep up or try to educate people as we do what we need to do, as we execute, as we roll out our services, as we launch services, as we expand. Education is something that we will always do and we will constantly do. And so that was one of the drivers of the decision to launch those billboards. And it was really about educating people that paying online is safe. You just need to know, like there are brands, there are companies that are doing this as a business and that are providing this service, right? And you can trust these companies. And obviously, it was only one company who we're going to be asking them to trust, and that's us, right? And so it was that was the thinking behind it, to just educate people who are not necessarily in the ecosystem or tech savvy, right? But the broad population about just getting comfortable with paying online and getting more familiar with the Paystack brand, and and then the whole community of online payment service providers as well. So that was the thinking behind it. Uche, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Thank you
Okay,
so much,
sure,
Charles.
sure.
I'm not sure there is other question. It's been an honor hosting you on this today's edition of Sterling October. It
Pleasure.
happens to be the last of our
Selling
um,
series.
Sterling series, and I couldn't have asked for a more befitting end
Wow,
to the series than this. So
wow.
thank you so much.
It's a
We will
pleasure.
hopefully we can continue to stay in touch, and like I will always do. I hope you are open to mentoring and coaching, especially mentoring startups. I know that for your lives, time is an expensive commodity, so we do our best to ensure that we don't bog you down with unnecessary calls, with and requests basically.
Mm,
But it would be great to know that we have you in the community as a mentor, and we can easily, reach out to you with sales issues when it comes up within our startups. So if that's okay, fine by you, I would just let them know that you're accepting to be a mentor to the community as far as sales is concerned.
sure. I'm happy to help out any way I can. So you just let me know, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Uche. The pleasure is all mine.
So I can
Thank you very
let you
much.
go rest. I know you've had a lot of meetings today.
Indeed.
So
Thank you so much, Uche. All the
so
best to you and everyone else. We'll
thank
be in touch. Cheers. Bye.
you. We will. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, thank you for joining the session today as we round up the as we round up the session. Please leave in the comment. Let us know what you think we should focus on um, this November. What area of your business you think we should focus on this November? Just let us know in the comments, and we'll collect that and assemble, just like we've done in October. We'll assemble a great cast of professionals to speak to the issues that you want us to speak to. And in case you are not part of the community already, you probably want to sign up to join a city-based community. If you have signed up already and you've not gotten the link, gotten a feedback from us yet, don't worry. We will get back to everyone who has filled that form. It's going to be very soon. We're working seriously behind the scenes to make sure that everything works out very smoothly. And I just like to say, go ahead and share, relive the moment for October. Go ahead and watch all the videos, all the past editions and all the past sessions, and let us know if you have questions that you need answers to, and we will do our best to provide the answers. If we have to get back to some of the speakers to get the answers, we'll do our best to do it. And finally, the slides will be available at the resource section of our website. You can download the slides from there. And again, for those of you who run startups, you can list and showcase your startup on the website, so that you can be found. Okay. So thank you so much for joining. Please, before you leave the call, do me a favor, share the video to your networks and let them watch this. I think today was a fantastic session. I don't know if you observed, but this is like a masterclass on sales. What do you need at different stages of your business? That's what Charles has been able to do for us in this short space. Thank you so much, and see you next week. I look forward to your comments. I'd like to know what you think we should deal with in November. Okay, just let us know what you think we should deal with. Thank you very much.